Thanks for watching. Our prayer is that this message will help you grow closer to God. Visit us at hwcagra.com for more great content.
Okay, so I work with students. I love students. Students, well, I think all people are like this, but students, it's very obvious. We have a worship team, and like, the way that our worship team works for the students is that I basically have two rules about worship team. One is that you have to come to youth group 3 times in a row before you're allowed to be on worship team. And that sounds like a really limited rule, right? But it's kind of hard to get kids there 3 times in a row. Like, 3 times in a row, they're part of the youth group, okay? And the other is that they have an audition. So that's a scary part for them. When I say that, I get like, I said that to a student this week who I know is going to nail the audition. Like, I'm 100% sure, like, she is going to nail the audition. And she's like, and I'm like, it's going to be okay. It's going to be all right. And she was one, like, she's not in the room, so I'm not embarrassing her even to herself. But she is incredibly talented, like very obviously incredibly talented. And it hadn't occurred to her that she should try out for worship team. Like, her heart wanted to, but her mind was telling her, like, no, you have to be better than you are to do that. And so this is going to come back into play later, but students, they don't notice opportunities that would be good for them. Sometimes because, well, students can be oblivious, right, Dom? Yes, they can. They can walk through life and be like, what? And students can think, oh, that's too big for me. And students can think that's too small for me. So I think we all do this, right? So last week we had a grill and chill event with the youth group. By the way, it's okay to laugh and interact. It's kind of what I'm used to. So if you want to make me feel more comfortable, laugh if it seems like I'm trying to be funny, even if I'm not. I think I say that. Thank you. You guys got it. You're on top of this. So last week we had what we call a grill and chill because we like to steal names from Dairy Queen. And Dairy Queen, is it chill and grill, or I don't know. But we just roast hot dogs and, that sort of thing, and hang out. And Valerie, was there, and she was having a really great time only being moderately supervised outdoors. Like, so she was playing in the dirt, and she was, picking it up and putting it on her and picking it up and putting it on her, and she's covered, just absolutely covered in dirt. And she, like, moderately supervised. So she ate some dirt and she just had a great time. So by the time we got home, like, she was out. She was out. And I pulled her out of the car seat and I went to go lay her down in her crib. And first I couldn't just lay her down. Like, she was covered in dirt. So I took off her outfit because she was just covered in dirt. And I wiped her face off so that she wouldn't continue to eat dirt throughout the night. And I just was like, okay, she'll have a bath in the morning because I'm not going to wake her up or she'll scream. Do my parents understand this routine? I know this is a long story. But if you wake up a baby at that point, you are going to regret it for the rest of the night. So you do not wake up that baby, okay? You do what you have to do, but you don't wake up the baby. All right? We can all agree. So I laid her down in the crib, and she's still very dirty, and she's, just in a diaper. And then I start to go, and she grabs my hand, like, because when I lay her down, I put my hand on her face, and I hold it there a second because that helps her stay asleep. And she grabs my hand, like she's asleep, I think, and she grabs my hand, and I'm like, okay. And so normally she would put my hand on her face. She put my hand on top of her head. Okay, and this is kind of unusual for her, and it's kind of unusual for me. The only time I ever put my hand on somebody's head is either to, like, shake their head, like, as a joke, or to pray for them. And so, like, I'm trying to get away from my baby who's holding onto my hand because I have stuff to do, because I also have been outside all night, and I would really like to clean up a little bit, or I will be grouchy, So I'm like, okay, I have stuff to do. And so I get her back to sleep, and I pull my hand. She grabs my hand again. I'm like, okay, Valerie, I have things I need to get done tonight. I have things I need to take care of. And there's this moment when the Holy Spirit speaks to me and says, your 1-year-old daughter, is asking for you to put your hand on her head. this is an opportunity. This is an opportunity that you're not going to have for a very long time. Even though it seems like a long time that she's going to be here in your house holding your hand on her head, there will be a time when she pushes this hand off your head. So, off her head. There we go. So I stopped and I prayed for her. And I've prayed for my daughter. And I've had plenty of opportunities since then. And I've had plenty of opportunities before that. But I almost missed, and I continue to miss, opportunities. And I was reading through Acts a couple weeks ago. I came across this story, and we'll see if everybody went to kids' church. Do you guys know the song, Peter and John Went to Pray? They met a lame man on the way. No, I'm the only one? Okay, so anyway, I won't sing it to you. But he asked for alms and held out his palms, and this is what Peter did say. Silver and gold have I none, but such as I have give I thee. In the name of Jesus Christ, pick up your mat and walk. And he went walking and leaping and praising God. And it's a great story. We have a song about it. Half of us know it. Most of us are too scared to sing it. So we have a song. We know the story. And as I was reading this, I realized that the story doesn't stop there. The man is walking and leaping and praising God. And he goes throughout the temple and he walks and he leaps and he praises God. And then he comes back to to Peter. We were talking about Paul and Silas this morning in Sunday school. Peter, he comes back to Peter and John and he's clinging to them because he's so thankful. And so everybody is gathering around them. And Peter and John, they were on a mission. They were going to pray. They were on a good mission. They're going to go do something good. And then Peter, I'm going to read, we are in, Acts 3, verse 9. All the people saw this man, saw him walking and praising God. When they realized that he was the lame beggar they had seen so often at the beautiful gate, they were absolutely astounded. They all rushed out in amazement to Solomon's colonnade where the man was holding tightly to Peter and John. And Peter saw his opportunity and he addressed the crowd. People of Israel, what is so surprising about this? And why stare at us as though we had made this man walk by our own power or godliness? And Peter takes this opportunity to share the gospel of Jesus Christ, to share the good news of Jesus with these people. So it goes on to say, while Peter and John were speaking to the people, they were confronted. This is in chapter 4. They were confronted by the priests, the captain of the temple guard, and some of the Sadducees. These leaders were very disturbed that Peter and John were teaching the people that through Jesus there is resurrection of the dead, which, by the way, Peter and John would have been perfectly aware that this was going to make people uncomfortable, especially at the temple. They arrested them, and since it was already evening, put them in jail until morning. But many of the people who heard their message believed it. So the number of men who believed now totaled about 5,000 people. So this is like people who follow Jesus in the world, like this 5,000. The first 3,000 or over 3,000 that were added to their number on the day of Pentecost. And then the Lord added to their number daily. But here was an opportunity for them to speak to Jews all gathered together who had just seen something amazing. And God used that opportunity that Peter took. But it cost Peter something. He spent the night in jail. So many times when we read the Bible, we stop at the fun ending. It's really easy to say, look what God did. He healed this person. Our God heals. Yes, he does. And that's amazing. But God didn't want to stop at that one person that day. And he didn't. So today we're going to talk about opportunities. Each of us are given opportunities to minister to others, to take care of others, to encourage others, to bring people to the saving knowledge of Jesus Christ. And there are times when we allow those opportunities to be blocked, and there are times when it throws us off. So today we're talking about opportunities. First of all, busyness blocks opportunities. We are a society obsessed with busy. Are we all busy? How are you doing? I'm busy. Usually I've got this in my hand, right? It's hard. This is a really embarrassing story. I'm guessing I'm not the only one in this room who did this. A few months ago, they came out with something on the iPhone called Screen Time. So every week, your phone will pop up and tell you how much time you spend in a day on your phone. It'll tell you how much time you spend on Facebook, how much time you spend playing games, how much time you spent listening to podcasts, all of these things. It'll even tell you how many times in an hour you pick up your phone, which is scary. Okay, just so you know. And at first I'm like, this is great. This is great. I waste so much time, particularly like at home on the couch. I'm vegged out, right? I'm like, I'm tired and I'm on my phone and it's a waste of time. I'm like, think of all the housework I'll do. And so, yes, I know people who know me know better. But anyway, I set these limits on my phone so that it would tell me. And the first few times I'm like, okay, I'm going to put down my phone. I'm going to go do something else. And then it kind of got annoying. I'm like, quit telling me what to do, phone. So I turned it off. And not only did I turn off the limits, but I quit telling it to tell me once a week how much time I spent on my phone because I didn't want to know, honestly. My phone is a huge distraction. It's a huge tool in my life, but it's also a huge distraction. And I think we're all kind of like this. We have trouble connecting because when your phone buzzes, if you want to look at it and see what it is, right? Like it almost drives you crazy if you can't. And that's why I'm going to put it over there and hope that nobody texts me, okay? Because that's just mean. That's just mean. Yes. We all know, like whether it's a cell phone or whatever, we all know that we occasionally waste our time. Some of us are really bad about it. But we all occasionally waste our time, whether on phones, watching TV, or whatever. Things that probably don't really matter, but they're things that we like. And we miss the mark. I was in a class last month that talked about the effects of cell phones on relationships. Because when we are in a conversation with someone, and I can tell you, first of all, students almost don't know how to not do this. And I'm right there with them. And I think we're all pretty bad about it. But when you get a text on your phone and you're in the middle of a conversation, you pull out your phone, that sends a message, whether people realize it or not, but probably they do, that what you're saying is not as good as what, like, oh, is there something better going on? Like, do I need to... We all have been in that situation where someone has pulled out their phone while you're in the middle of telling them something important, and that person didn't mean to tell you you're not important, but what it communicated to your heart was that you're not important. Sometimes we sit down to, like, we see a friend in the coffee shop or whatever, and we're like, we really need to get together, and you start to kind of try to pick out dates, and there's just not a spot. There's not a spot for it. We're incredibly busy. And how many times have I walked out of my, oh man, Valerie loves to, I'm going to talk about Valerie all day today. I'm sorry. She loves to read books over and over. And every time I finish the book, I hand it back to her and she pushes it back to me. How many times have I went, oh my goodness, when what she needed was that time? I'm the worst offender. We all do this, okay? We all do this. And I understand that we do have things that need done. We all have lives. We have obligations. We have things that we need to take care of. You do have to do the dishes at some point. My husband's like, yeah, it'd be good if you would once in a while. But I do the dishes. He does the laundry. The laundry is caught up currently, and the dishes are not. You have to do those things. You have to stick to your commitments. You need to rest and recoup and take time for yourself and for your family. I'm not here to make you feel guilty. But sometimes busyness is just busyness. What if Peter and John were on their way to church? They're on their way to church. And they don't want to be late because the Sunday school teacher always looks at them like, really? You're late to Sunday school? And they're like, we gotta go. And they see this guy walk by and he's literally asking everyone, right? Because it says in the Bible that, like, when Peter turned to him, he had to say, look at me. Because the guy's like, I need money. He could have walked by so easily if he had been in a hurry, but he saw the opportunity. And not only that, that led to another opportunity. God is putting opportunities in front of us every single day to honor him, to draw ourselves, our families, our friends, our relatives closer to him. But we won't see any of them if we don't stop and put our phones down once in a while and put down what we're working on once in a while so that we can be attuned to the voice of God. So, first of all, busyness blocks opportunities. Second of all, exciting opportunities are often followed by boring or unpleasant opportunities. Okay, so this week, well, a couple weeks ago, we put on a production called One Nation Under God. You guys aware of this? If you're not, where have you been? Okay, this is the biggest event that our church puts on. There, we served dinner to who knows how many people. Somebody does. It's okay. But there were over 200 people in this room for that program. Do you know, that's an exciting opportunity. And Leanne and her team had been planning forever and ever. And that night and that day is an exciting time. It feels good when it's over, too. And not just because, oh, thank goodness, it's over, but because it was great. All the people that were ministered to, the veterans who greatly and deeply appreciated all of these things, and that opportunity felt good at the end, right? And then this week they took another opportunity to step back and do something that's, first of all, not nearly as exciting. Second of all, it's not real fun. And they went over how everything went and what they can do next year and what they can do now to prepare for next year. And can I tell you, they were here for several hours doing this, preparing for next year. That's not always fun, because right after you're feeling good about it and it's really easy to think about the things that went really well. It's not always easy to take a hard look at something and say, what can we do better? Because when you rock something like One Nation Under God went awesome this year, it's hard not to be like, oh, wow, we've nailed it. We are good enough. And we will see you guys next year. They took the time. I can't tell you, and this is, I think God's funny and he likes to mess with me sometimes. But when we do the Live Your Faith conference, I can't tell you how many times I have walked off the stage, and then there's one year in particular, and then done something that was kind of gross, because, students, a bunch of students in the building, it gets gross in here. But I can think of one in particular. I walked off the stage, I went out that door, and I unclogged the toilet. It's not glamorous, right? It's not exciting. It's not really anything that anyone knows about until you preach about it later. But this is how God works, right? That first of all, we're given small opportunities because he gives us a little bit so that we can grow in our faith and grow in our works. And it's not real exciting. And then you get to do something really exciting. And it's awesome. Peter, they healed somebody, and this guy is so thankful, and he's running around, and it's very exciting. And then he gets another opportunity that's still a good opportunity, but it's not quite as fun. Exciting opportunities are often followed by unpleasant opportunities. We look for the next big thing, and there probably is another big thing on the horizon. But God is constantly giving you opportunities, both because he's got a good sense of humor, right? And you're like, okay, well, I'm not going to unclog a toilet today. Like, oh, yeah, you are. And because it's good for us to remember who we're doing this for. It's good for us to remember that we are servants of Christ. And sometimes being a servant of Christ looks like being on the stage. And sometimes being a servant of Christ looks like setting up chairs. And both are necessary. Next time you have an opportunity to do something exciting and awesome for God, stop and look around, because you've probably got something else coming up, right after it. It's not going to look as good, but it's going to be just as much an opportunity from God. So seized opportunities lead to seen opportunities. I just have to use this example. I'm sorry, students. But you're my examples always. Has anybody ever had the great pleasure of watching a middle schooler sweep a room? Like, it is funny. It is funny. Okay. So like, you give them a broom and they sweep over here. And then they come over here and they sweep over here. They're looking for dirt to sweep. Okay. So they find dirt and they sweep it and they move it to another location. Okay. This is what sweeping is when you don't know how to sweep. Okay. So it's interesting. Like when we clean up fellowship hall, when we teach them how to use the dust mop, this is how kids learn. Like they get the opportunity to learn how to sweep. And not that their parents never taught them or whatever, but this is just, they're at that age where they're learning those things. Okay. So until a middle schooler has learned to sweep, they probably don't even notice the dirt. It can be absolutely trashed and they will not notice it. Not because, they're messy or lazy or whatever, but because they've never had to clean up after a fellowship dinner. So they don't notice that it's messy. They don't notice like a puddle of lemonade until they've swept over it and got the dust mop all sticky, right? They don't notice it. This is how they learn. Okay. This is how we all learned. We all did things like this. By the time middle schoolers start out not being able to sweep, by the time they become high schoolers, both because they get jobs, because they learn more at home, they're given more responsibility, and because they've been taught and they've done it here, you'll see that the high schoolers usually got it pretty well figured out. Okay. They figure it out. And they begin to notice things. They begin to look around and notice, oh, the floor is really dirty. You know what? I'll sweep, when we're doing cleanup. But until that point, they need direction, right? They need it pointed out to them. I remember when I was first learning to mow the lawn, my older brother was teaching me, and I missed a big strip of grass. And he's like, you missed a big strip of grass. And I look and I can't see it. I literally don't see what he's talking about. And he's like, you can't see that? How could you not be able to see that? It's right there. And then I had the exact same moment with my little brother, where I'm like, you missed a strip of grass there, Cordell. And he's like, what? And I'm like, I was you once. This is how you learn. It's the same with opportunities from God. If we go through life never listening to God's direction, never looking for what God is asking us to do, or looking for opportunities, we'll never see them. But the more we take up those opportunities where, okay, so I heard that so-and-so is sick, I'm going to bring them dinner. Or, okay, so my neighbor is elderly and there was a storm, I'm going to drag limbs out of their yard. Or whatever. The more that we see those things, the more that we see those things. The more that we do those things, the more often we're going to look around and say, there's something that God is asking me to do. Seized opportunities lead to seen opportunities. So the more you take up those opportunities that God gives you, whether with your children or your friends or your neighbors or your coworkers, the more you notice opportunities God is giving you. I think we all want to be used by God. We were all created to be used by God. Sometimes we get that twisted in our head. We go back to the exciting opportunities thing, and we forget that what leads to those exciting opportunities is the small stuff. We need to start looking for the little stuff that God is putting before us. Most of the time, if we just stop and look around, there's an opportunity to serve the Lord. A lot of times it's, cleaning up after a fellowship dinner. That's a great opportunity. I mentioned helping a neighbor or bringing meals to someone who's not feeling well, setting up chairs in the youth room. There are opportunities not just within the church, but in your neighborhood to share the gospel, to serve. And the more faithful we are with those little things, the more opportunities God will give us. So finally, God will equip you. We're probably going to get out of church early today, guys. We're all thinking it, but it's going to be an early day. Like, I hope you're okay with it. I'm hoping that the pastries are finished. I'm just going to pause and do a little infomercial because I've got a little bit of time. They're baking those right now, and they should be in the foyer when we're finished. And you'll have the opportunity to taste some, and you'll have the opportunity to order if you like what you taste, which I think you will because they're awesome. Anyway, sorry for the mid-sermon infomercial. I just realized I meant to say that earlier. God will equip you. I can tell you from personal experience that a lot of the time when God asks you to do something that you don't really necessarily feel ready to do it. Some of us really struggle with this one. Whether we have a skewed view of ourselves or whether it's just because God, He really does like to have us do things that make us lean on Him. When we're operating in our strengths, it's easy to just go on without God, right? Like, oh, I got this. I know what I'm doing. It's easy to feel unqualified for the opportunities God gives you. And it's really easy, and we're all bad about this, to look around and compare ourselves to the people who would do a better job than us. Like, I mean, when we're asked to participate in a choir, maybe say, like, you know, if that opportunity ever arises, it's easy for us to look around and say, you know, I don't sound like that guy. That's for sure. I mean, you know, I can carry a tune with a bunch of people surrounding me like in a choir. Anyway, this isn't pointed at all, but I don't have a really good voice. And, you know, I think that that's more for the people who are way more talented than me. Oh, you know what? I'm not a real good cook, and this is actually true. Like, I'm an okay cook, but I'm not a real good cook. So, you know, I'll just let other people bring meals to that community event. I'll just let God use me in my strength of binge watching Netflix. That's really where I'm strong, you know, and I know that God put that in me for a reason. So many of the times, the Bible says that God chose the weak things of the world to confound the wisdom of the world, because it doesn't make sense. That's what God wants people to do. Like, you know, that doesn't really make sense. Like Paul, you know, Paul, he's not a real good looking guy. He's not a real eloquent guy. He's really smart, but he writes all these letters. Like, he doesn't strike me as someone God would use to write most of the Bible. Like, so why is this guy speaking of Jesus and this wisdom? Why is this guy bringing people to God? Because it's not at all about us. It's not at all about our abilities. Yes, God blesses us with talents and abilities to be used for His glory, but God will oftentimes choose us to do things that don't make any sense to us. God chooses the weak things of the world, and He chooses the foolish things so that everyone knows that it's Him. I can tell you with confidence that there are better speakers than me. There are people who are smarter. There are people who are funnier. Well, maybe not, but it's right there. You know, there's probably somebody who's funnier somewhere if we look really hard. But there are people who are more qualified than I am to do the jobs that I'm doing for God. There are people who are a lot more comfortable with teenagers than I am. And like, I say that, I love teenagers. They make me uncomfortable. I love them. God has grown me so much working with teenagers. The things that matter are not what we're good at. The thing that matters is that we're called and equipped by God. You are called and equipped by God. And your calling doesn't look like my calling. And my calling doesn't look like your calling. But every one of us is called by God, whether to vocational ministry or ministry in your business, ministry at your work, ministry as you go pick up your meal for the day. Your ministry is your calling, and your life is your ministry. Once we realize our deep need for Jesus and we give our lives to him, we begin a lifelong process of showing the love of Jesus to others. And there's nothing like after you know Jesus and you are with him and you're walking with him, the enemy's next thing is like, okay, I'm going to make this person ineffective. I'm going to make them too busy. I'm going to make them think that this opportunity is not good enough for them. I'm going to make them think that they can't do it. And that's his goal. As long as we stand on God, as long as we take up those opportunities, we won't fail. He will use you in small ways that you never considered worth it, and in big ways that you never considered possible. So, Leanne, if you would come up and help me on the piano this morning. It's not always easy to say yes to God, both for the first time saying yes with my life, because I'm a control freak personally, and I like to make my own decisions, and this doesn't really work well in marriage either, but I don't like to consult other people. But saying yes to God, saying yes, I will follow you. Yes, I will be part of this family. I will be part of this mission is the most freeing thing you can do. Freedom comes in submission to God, which doesn't make any sense to us until we experience it.